Welcome to my careful ramble. I was just talking about allowing for small talk to emerge and a little story about how that happened. But I ended by mentioning why I don't let it go on too long. And it's because a lot of my students really are there for the intended teaching and learning. And so they want the lesson to begin. They want to see what it's leading towards. They want to be told how it's going to be graded. They'll ask about how it's going to be graded, what's going to be due. A lot of my students they keep themselves organized around school institutional needs, which always lead toward grades. And so when I've done things that are kind of loose and free in terms of topic development with them, a lot of them just start chatting off topic with each other in English about just really unrelated topics. And it's hard to pull their attention back in until I tell them, hey, you're going to need this thing right now. It's coming up on our graded whatever, and here's how it's going to play into that. So let's get focused. That typically does get their focus. So something I have been doing is saying, in a few years from now, if it's ninth grade, I say in 3 years from now, in 10th grade, in 2 years from now, in 11th grade, 1 year from now, you're going to have to take an internal assessment. It's an individual oral assessment where you're going to have to talk for 4 minutes and then have a conversation with me about what you just said for 5 minutes, and then have an additional conversation with me about something related to what we just talked about, but on a different theme in the IB language system of themes. And it's very intense, 15 minutes of straight talking, and it's hard, and it takes years to build up the proficiency to be able to do it. And so I know this seems kind of loose, but what we're going to do is we're going to keep recycling through old topics and really talking about what you remember about society. That's what all these topics are about. So I don't ask them so much about the fictional things we create, not in the IA document that I create for them, the internal assessment document. Those are the society topics with pictures. What I do with them also is I explain that by talking about real things, we're limited and we can't say as much because the real thing has already been talked about. So there's nothing else to say about it. However, when we get imaginative and play with ideas, then we get to get a lot more usage of language around the same kinds of things that we were saying about the society thing. But it can go on as long as we want because we get to keep making up new ideas. And so building a topic in an imaginative direction. So that's where I'll say to them, okay, that's why today we're going to start. I promise you it'll only be 10 minutes of class time. That usually is about the most that my class as a whole will tolerate. Anything beyond that, and they go, oh, okay, can we get to the lesson? Or they'll signal in an indirect way by getting off topic and chatting a lot. So I set my phone, my Siri is set to Mandarin Chinese, and so I tell Siri, 请设置闹钟，设置为10分钟, and then Siri will say, 闹钟已设好, or something like that. The alarm is set. So it's set for 10 minutes. They can see that it's set. It's my promise to them. And then I'll pull up silly pictures, lizard people and whatever, and I'll just start asking all kinds of different questions, because all kinds of different questions typically are the high frequency questions that use high frequency words because they're very useful questions. They're sort of domain general. Who is this? What is this? Where are they? Do they like this? What do they have? What do they want? Where do they want to go? Those questions are useful in all kinds of topics all the time. So it doesn't matter that it's a playful context. We're going to use those questions in real context too. Maybe the word lizard man is not so useful, but that's why it's just the one silly word. But everything else we say is useful. Does he have a job? What job does he do? By contrasting silly imagery with real life, routine, mundane business, there's a natural humor built into it, where it's like, well, here's a strange lizard man. What does he do? And we can just start describing normal everyday things he does, and that's laughable because we would expect a lizard man to do outlandish things, but we're just describing daily normal things. And so that inherently creates a sort of comedic contrast, subverts expectations about what a silly image person might do. And we'll then juxtapose the normal daily things with other silly things as well. You set up expectations and you twist expectations, and you set up expectations and you twist expectations. So, here's a silly lizard person. What does he do on weekends? Well, he plays tennis. Oh, okay. He plays tennis. All right. Well, does he play well? Yeah. Yeah, he's really good at tennis. Oh, when did he start playing? Oh, when he was a child. Oh, cool. So who taught him tennis? His parents. His parents taught him tennis. Hey, that's really cool. Does he have any siblings? Like, yeah, his siblings all play tennis. Oh, wow. It's kind of like Venus and Serena Williams. Their parents taught them tennis. How many siblings do they have? They have 100 siblings, and their parents taught them all tennis, right? So you can set up a string of normal, mundane ideas, and that, if you're wondering about, how is this applicable to using language in real life contexts, because we're talking about mundane things. It just happens to be in the context of a silly situation. And then it's okay to say he's got 100 outlandish numbers. When are large numbers relevant? Oh, when we talk about the economy, we talk about millions of people doing this or that. We can get into large numbers about anything. So why not get into large numbers about something imaginative and silly? I typically follow, this comes from my older training in TPRS 10 years ago, teaching proficiency through reading and storytelling, which has a very large community of passionate, imaginative teachers who have all gotten together at conferences every summer for decades now, sharing their best ideas. So, I stay tuned into these teachers as much as I can. But I've also been building on the ideas I got from them 10 years ago about getting silly. And the research that I do with Diane Neubauer is also focused on play, defining play, animals that play, how do humans play, and then also what benefits does play bring to language learning and language usage. So yeah, that's another thing that I've done where I wouldn't call it peripheral to the lesson. I would say it's a segment of the lesson. It's separate usually from the lesson that follows, but it leads into a longer term goal within our school, which is that my students can perform well on this big oral interview that's coming up during their senior year. Yep, that's what I'm doing. All right, thanks for listening.